Alright, so for this assignment we are tasked with kind of understanding the science of reading and then how it has happened and then kind of the workings behind it. So to start, what is the science of reading? The science of reading is the research done by reading experts over time. This can kind of be the breakdown of everything that's occurred, and the focus is that it's done by the leading experts in the field. This is something that's hotly contested because it is always being worked on. It's been around for a long time. There's kind of been a breakdown forever based on things such as what is the alphabet, what alphabet should we use, what is the most effective. It was really contested in the 80s and 90s because that was kind of a big period of learning. A lot of experts were kind of trying to focus on the best way to help students because they noticed a lot of troubling trends that were occurring. So why is it important? It is important because it's involved in understanding how we read, why we choose certain things to teach, and then what kind of fits the best mold. Based on the science of reading, what is called the Big Five was created. So what is the Big Five? The Big Five is first phonemic awareness, second phonics, third fluency, fourth vocabulary, and then fifth comprehension. Each one of these will be broken down into their own individual slide so that there's a better understanding. So the first one, phonemic awareness. What is the definition of phonemic awareness? Phonemic awareness is the ability to focus on and manipulate phonemes in spoken words. Basically, there's different things that can kind of help contribute to that. So what are three strategies for teaching phonemic awareness? The first one is oral and oral. Basically, they need to be able to speak it and they need to be able to hear it. Speaking is important because it helps them to talk properly, and if they can talk properly, that is a great thing. The second one is listening. If they need to be able to listen, because if they don't listen properly, then they could develop wrong habits because they didn't hear it spoken properly. Second one is model performing phonemic awareness for students. The teacher is the teacher for a reason. The students are always going to be looking for what they do. They're kind of the big reason why students get into learning, and they just kind of are the first thing that helps students learn. Students need to know that it's a learning activity, not a drill activity. It's learning, yes. Students want to do the best they can, and they need to learn why things are important. But if they think it's a drill where they're going to get in trouble if they get it wrong, they're going to approach it differently, and that could harm the way they learn. Secondly, phonics. What is the definition of phonics? Phonics is the teaching methods that helps students relate spoken sounds to written symbols in systematic and predictable ways. Basically, it is the broken down way in which we speak. So what are three strategies for teaching phonics? First off is the letter naming test. Basically, this is important because it helps a student to match, say, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, to be able to pick letters out in sentences and words and phrases. It is important because it kind of tests their alphabet knowledge. Second, running records. Running records is basically a sequence of tests to kind of help a teacher understand the knowledge point to which a student is. It is going to get progressively harder because it tests them at different levels and different subjects in which they might be able to focus on. Third is the Consortium on Reading Excellence or Core Phonics Survey. Basically, this is a test that can be administered in 10 minutes. It costs most people. Basically, it tests their alphabet knowledge and then their reading and decoding skills. It tests them on this individualistic level so that teachers get more of a individual learning so they know who's at what level. Third is fluency, or reading fluency as was found in the book. What is the definition of this? This is characterized by 1, accurate, effortless, and automatic word identification. 2, appropriate age or grade level reading speed or reading rate. 3, appropriate use of expression or prosody in the voice when reading aloud. And 4, correct text phrasing, sometimes called scooping or chunking. Prosody is kind of the expression, as it's said. The student needs to know how to speak in what context. They don't want to be reading a super sad moment and then be speaking in this super upbeat voice because that just doesn't fit the text, and the student needs to be aware of that. So what are three strategies for teaching fluency? First strategy is choral reading. Choral reading is basically allowing a student to not feel individualized when speaking. They don't want to be the primary focus because maybe they're nervous. They may think people are going to judge them because they mispronounce words. The benefit is this is not individualistic. It could be 2 people, it could be the whole class, it could be half the class, it could be small groups. Basically, it allows the student to fit into a group so they're not being isolated. It allows them to feel more comfortable because they don't think that people are going to focus on their voice. It allows them to practice in a more safe environment. Also, it's also helpful because it allows them to hear other students speak. They can hear multiple different students speak in multiple different ways and just kind of learn which is the best method. And all around, it's a great helpful tool. Second one is partner or paired reading. Essentially, this allows a teacher to match up a more advanced student with maybe a student that's a little bit farther behind. It allows the behind student to learn things from the advanced student. They're going to learn different methods to speak, different kind of understanding of words. It also helps the advanced student because it kind of shows them they are where they're at, and the effort that they've put into it has really helped them to advance to where they are. Finally, is scaffolded silent reading. Scaffolding is when the teacher starts off with complete control over what the student reads, and then over time they slowly hand that off to the student in a manner that is kind of effective to where the student gains power in what they're reading, and it kind of gives them a confidence. They become more assertive in their reading. They kind of take more pride in it. Obviously it's silent reading, so you kind of start off giving them what to read and then allow them to set their own deadlines and what needs to be read. Obviously that's within reason. You're not going to let them take complete control, but giving a majority of the power kind of helps their confidence when it comes to reading. Fourth is vocabulary. Definition of vocabulary is words that can be heard, understood, or used in the daily lives. In the textbook, I couldn't find a solid spot for a definition. There was kind of a couple different around the textbook in this chapter that focused on vocabulary, and this is the one that kind of stood out to me. So what are some teaching strategies? The first strategy could be word sorts. Basically, you're giving a student set lists. The list could be 20 different words. It could be furniture, fruits, vegetables, and then sports. There was where the student would match each word to each different line. If a student tries to say an apple's a furniture, then maybe they don't quite have the vocabulary down, and it's kind of a stepping stone on where to go next. Next is everyone's popular favorite one. It's Hangman. This is the one that everyone knows. It's played in classrooms all around because it's a fun little game. And it's just that, it's a game. It's not meant to be taken seriously, but it's a learning tool because it allows them to predict what could happen. They learn that certain letters are used commonly in different words and can be used to help identify the word in question. Finally is word banks. Word banks is essentially a diary for the students. It allows them to take words they've learned or words maybe they're struggling with and writing them down. Allows them to go back and reread over them and kind of learn them at the pace they're comfortable with, but also maintain their current pace elsewhere. Fifth is comprehension or reading comprehension. The definition is intentional thinking during which meaning is constructed through interactions between text and the reader. The context of meaning is influenced by the text and by the reader's prior knowledge and experience. So what are some strategies for teaching comprehension? You can do reciprocal teaching. This one is where it's made of predicting, questioning, clarifying, and summarizing. Predicting allows the student to think what could happen in this situation, and they need to know what's happening to be able to predict what could happen in the future. If they have any questions, they can kind of ask the teacher. The teacher can do the next step, which is clarifying. And finally, they can summarize. Summarizing allows them to essentially tell what they understood during the sentence and kind of help them. Next one is the Paris model, or the Paris approach. The Paris approach is really similar to the reciprocal teaching, except it differences because they're not questioning and clarifying between teacher and student. This one is basically the student is retelling the story through questions that the teacher asks, and then they infer what things they think could happen. Um, it allows the student to take more of the authority. It's kind of, in my opinion, relates back to scaffolding, and finally they can also summarize. And the third one is sequencing, comprehension, strategy, instruction. Basically, the teacher sets up what they want the student to read, and as they read, they're going to hit these set topics and checkpoints that allow the student to gather different viewpoints and kind of looks inside to see what the teacher wants them to learn. Finally is the 5-block method reading and writing model. What this is it's like it says, it's a 5-block system that occurs over time to allow the student to kind of break down what they know. So first off, they get 30 minutes of writing. This allows them to work on new words and things of that nature. Second 30 minutes is fluency. It allows them to practice kind of fitting words into sentences and kind of hearing it out loud. Third is comprehension. It kind of helps them get 30 minutes to understand potentially new words that they learned in the writing. They can get comprehension of how things are supposed to flow. Next is word working. They get 30 minutes of that. It allows them to do those games like Hangman or Word Sorts or Word Banks. Finally, they get small group differentiated reading instruction / practice. This one is the longest. They get twice the amount of time because this is where they can really put everything together. It allows them to kind of work off all this previous things. In this step, we're supposed to associate this with the science of reading. This, in a nutshell, is the science of reading because each one of these boxes is essentially one of the big 5. They go hand in hand and they're constantly able to change, but they've been a staple since the 90s, and all in all, they go well together because they pretty much are the same steps. How do I think this would fit into teaching or my teaching? I think it is great because it allows the students to work through the problems. It allows them to have idolized focus. They are able to split off into their groups, and the teacher can go around and work at each student kind of as they see fit in the current section they're in. All in all, it works well. It could always change. Like I said, the science of reading is always changing because the experts are always working on it. It's not as publicized now because we're not in the 80s or 90s where it was the big main focus on everything. Experts, there's a million more experts and they're always going to be growing subjects. But all in all, the science of reading is kind of a big focus because it is why we teach how we teach, and it is why we learn how we learn. Thank you.